Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy days to be here with me today and to allow me the opportunity to present some information on our organization Education Documents Universal. Otherwise, will be referred to as E.D.U through the remainder of this presentation. My name is Harvey Warner, and I am the founder and president of E.D.U. A little bit about me to get started, to familiarize yourselves with me, with my experience. I am completing my 12th year of experience in the field of higher education, particularly with international student services, admissions, and recruiting. During my career, I have served at 3 different institutions that I think are very different and have allowed for some varied experience. I started my career with Louisiana State University, which is my alma mater. It is a public state flagship institution, roughly 30,000 students total. My next institution, where I spent 5.5 years, was St. Louis University, the 5th largest Catholic institution in the country, a mid-sized institution, so taking a step down in terms of size from LSU, is a top 100 institution in terms of U.S. News and World Report rankings. And then most recently at Loyola University, New Orleans, a small liberal arts institution. So a little bit of an array of experience in terms of my professional career. I have been involved in the field of professional organizations, in leadership roles, conference session presentations. I've served as a recruitment tour leader. These are international recruitment tours organized for other participating institutions, sometimes 20, upwards of 30, in various regions of the world, primarily in Latin America. Been involved with hosting and planning a few conferences in the field, in languages, English native language, Spanish bilingual, and working on a little bit of Portuguese at this time, and a few of the professional affiliations, which you see, which will come in handy as we talk a little bit later in the presentation as to their importance with our organization. So problem that's been identified, and this is something that I've heard a number of times in the field from colleagues of mine. I've seen this myself, and we've heard these from students as well. This is particularly with our international student population. Now the trend is, and this is not just international, but even with the domestic students, is that students are applying to multiple schools, and with the ease of common application types like the Common App and other platforms, it's very easy for students to submit 10, 15, and even in some rare cases, 20 applications. It's hard for students to get the number of documents that they need to each of the institutions when typically what's considered official or verified credentials are needed. We do find that this is typically harder for the non-traditional type of applicant, so a student who's several years removed from their high school or most recent college experience, students who are unfortunately displaced or in refugee status and they're not close to their home country or region. We have some pretty extreme cases of students whose schools have burned down in civil wars, and so those are very tough situations in which they don't have any possible way to secure additional documents from their institutions. There's also other barriers that we'll mention, the cost that can be associated with the time that goes into the retrieving and the attainment of these documents. So there's a number of barriers, and unfortunately there's a lot of international students who aren't able to complete their applications and thus complete any aspirations or dreams of attending college. We put some examples of costs. My estimation is that an average student can spend at least $800 associated with the things that are needed to apply to a university. Applications can range from $30 to $40 to $50, and at your most selective institutions, even close to $100 to an application fee. The TOEFL charges close to $200 for an exam. It's $140 for the SAT, and then score reports can be between $12 and $20 for each score report that has to be submitted to each receiving institution. And then for students that have to get hard copy documents from their schools in their home countries, those schools obviously do not want to incur the cost of having those things mailed internationally to the state, so that cost does fall on the student. And if you can imagine students who are taking SATs and TOEFLs multiple times, you can multiply some of those amounts, times the number of times you're taking those exams, and that can quickly add up. On the university admission office side, we see that there is a much lower completion rate for applications with international students than what the overall rate is. Typically, it's easy to complete about 80% of the applications in your applicant pool, but with international students, for the reasons that we've mentioned already, this completion rate is less. And this is kind of a headache for university admissions professionals. There's more time that we have to spend following up with international students, and typically we are much smaller staff, less resources that can be allocated towards us, and there's, frankly, in recent years, a lot more pressure that's been added by university leadership and administration to increase the international student enrollments, the applications, but still not quite matching, the dedication of resources and manpower, for those needs. So this is a big problem for university admission offices, given that there is that emphasis on wanting to get more international students, yet we find that sometimes our hands are just tied because we can't even complete an application, which doesn't allow us to move forward in the process with those students. So this is where E.D.U comes into play. Our aim here is to help students achieve their goal of university admissions, as simple as that. Unfortunately, there's a number of great qualified students that likely would have some really great opportunities who unfortunately can't realize those aspirations and those dreams for the simple fact that they're not able to find a way to meet the requirements to complete their applications. And then for the universities, for the pressures that they're under and the goals that they have to meet, this is a great way to help them serve those students, to allow them the opportunity to complete their applications, and thus university admission and enrollment offices can meet those enrollment goals. So we do feel that this is a solution that can benefit all the parties involved in this process. For students, our product is offering a cloud-based solution to store electronic copies of their credentials. The big difference here from other competitors, which we'll talk about in a little while, is the fact that the student themselves can upload the copy of the document that they have. They will be able to submit all of their documents that they have uploaded in the portal to the receiving institutions that are participating. So it's a very easy electronic submission that does not require any mailing of documents, faxing, or any of the other old school methods. We are going to provide through various partners that we plan to partner with the assistance with verifying the authenticity of their credentials. This is typically one of the biggest concerns right now with why universities might not accept student-sourced documents, very understandably so, is to avoid fraudulent documents and not being able to verify authenticity. So we are going to provide those experts and those professionals the opportunity to log in and to provide a way to provide that verification so that the receiving universities are comfortable with receiving in that format. As we mentioned earlier, students are investing a lot of money just in what's required for the application process. We're estimating a savings of at least $150, taking into account the cost for our service to the students. So we are providing, in the overall scheme of things, a savings for the students in terms of what they're paying for the application process. For institutions, again, it's the ability to receive required credentials electronically, not waiting for things in the mail, not having to have a person dedicated to opening the mail or to checking multiple inboxes, emails. We are going to, again, as mentioned, providing the assistance with verifying the authenticity of credentials. This is one of the major concerns with receiving electronic documents right now from students. So much time is going to be saved. We mentioned the constraints in university admission offices, and so now university professionals can dedicate more of their time on other efforts since we're providing a much easier way to complete those applications. And more importantly, especially for leaders and those that are holding the purse strings, is helping meet enrollment goals. The way the funnel works is that we hope that more completed applications will lead to more positive admission decisions for students and the chance for these students to enroll at the university, which this turns into obviously increased revenue that comes into the organization. In a phase 2 launch further down the line, we are going to have a revenue model that provides some optional benefits for universities to have enhanced exposure, marketing opportunities, as well as the option to purchase leads from the pool of student users that we have. This will fill into the nice admissions funnel that we talk about in the admissions world, allowing them to increase the top end of the funnel in terms of their prospects, and then that will funnel all the way down and hopefully increase their final yield in their enrolled students. Here's a mock-up of the website, the user experience, both for students and for universities. The website, the web access portal here that you see right now is going to be for all parties involved, the university user, the student user, as well as our other partner users as well. The inside of the portal will obviously be much different depending on which user it is and the type of account that they have. We are going to place emphasis on this being a mobile-friendly website, as we're aware that most students, especially abroad and other locations, are primarily accessing the web through mobile devices. So this is a mock-up of what we hope is a very user-friendly and easy-to-navigate website experience, direct access to the login screen on the right-hand side, as most students will be doing most of their work from within their portal. Our next slide here has a mock-up of the student portal view, and specifically what would be the page showing their documents that they have uploaded. So you see here just a very basic shell of what this looks like, a list of all the documents, an easy way to find their documents on their device and upload to here. And they will have a function where they can search all their institutions that they have saved as their institutions they've applied to. Their verifiers, so the professionals or partners in the field that will be assisting with verifying the authenticity of documentations. And then on the right-hand side, they can browse all the institutions that are participating as they can search for additional options that they may be interested in. So this is a quick mock-up of the website and that user experience. So to delve a little bit into this market analysis, I think that there's a really great opportunity here. We have some great data from the International Institute of Education. They maintain the Open Doors data, which is updated every year, and most people in the field do rely heavily on this data, so this is very useful. As you can see, over the years since when this was first tracked in the 1950s, there has been a steady increase in international student enrollment, but particularly since about 2007 or 2008, there's really been a boom. There's a number of factors for this. I think it was the boom primarily in the Chinese economy and then subsequently in some of the other Southeast Asian economies. A number of reasons that we've just really seen the skyrocketing number of international students enrolled. And just a few years ago, we hit the 1 million mark. So currently, with the most recent data that we have, there's slightly over 1 million international students at all levels of study that are currently here in the U.S. So this is a pretty significant number and a significant market that we're looking at. I think from the university side too, there's been a lot more universities that are now, within the last 10 years, actively recruiting, have dedicated admissions professionals for international students than has been so, in past years. So we've seen that growth on the university side exponentially. Based on some numbers, so IIE's estimate of the new international student enrollment is roughly 290,000 students with this most recent year. This is a bit of a decline from the previous year. This is the first time in a number of years that this data has shown a decline. I do think it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction to the events of November 2016, but I don't really foresee this number dipping too low, and I think we're going to see the trend start to go back up again. And keeping in mind that this number is referring number of enrolled students in the U.S. I still think that there's the same number of applicants and those interested. We just saw recently students choosing to attend maybe in Canada and some other destinations, given some of the recent political events. However, we've seen good growth here. We should maintain that. I have estimated a total addressable market of 600,000 students, and this is per year. Since we're talking about prospective students, there's a new cohort of students that is entering into the university application phase each year. So we should be able to estimate, a brand new cohort of this number each year as we move forward. I do think this is a very conservative estimate. As you'll see, this is only slightly more than double the amount of enrolled students. We typically find that a university will maybe yield roughly between 10 to 20% of its international applicant pool. And taking into account that obviously there's some cross applications and students will enroll at other institutions, I think just using double the amount of enrolled students is a fairly conservative estimate. The serviceable market should be relatively the same. Our product is a cloud-based storage solution, and the capacities can be adjusted easily as needed. So I think theoretically we can accommodate for the full addressable market. The beachhead is going to be, again, a very conservative estimate. We're going to focus here on that non-traditional student, the one who's been out of school for a while, who's not living in their home country, the displaced, the refugee student, the traditional student who's still currently in high school or in college as they're applying to schools. They probably have the guidance and the assistance that they need right now and might not initially see as much value in our product as the non-traditional student. So again, a conservative estimate here would be 1% of our total addressable market, estimating at 6,000 students. And again, this is per year. These numbers here, our revenue estimates, is based on a $50 per customer model. So the total addressable market potential would be $30 million per year. And using our very conservative beachhead market estimate, about $300,000 per year off of that 1%, the 6,000 student estimate that we've used there. Since this is a new cohort that would be coming in each year, we're given about an 8% growth per year to account for bringing in that new cohort the following year. International students contribute a significant and a very big positive impact economically to the U.S. So I think that there are a number of other potential players and stakeholders who kind of really keep an eye on this and have a lot invested in increased international student presence here. You see some of the numbers broken down here in terms of the contribution to the economy. This is pretty significant. And since international students won't qualify for any federal or state aid programs, they're providing much more revenue than their traditional domestic counterparts to universities here. And you do see a breakdown here on the slide of typically where their funding is coming from. I have no reservations about universities' motivation and intent to participate in a program like ours and in a model like ours. Since this is going to be offered for free initially for university participation, there's no risk financially in terms of money for the universities. They will be motivated to participate. We mentioned earlier of the pressure that universities are under to recruit and bring in more international students. A big part of this has to do, with this revenue model for them. If we look right now, we'll talk about very quickly the discount rate at universities in the United States. The discount rate refers to the amount of aid, quote unquote, that's giving to the average student to come study, at our institutions. So typically our aid programs aren't really money that's given to the student, rather it's just a discount on the amount that we're asking them to pay. That's close to 50% now. So an institution that advertises a $40,000 a year tuition is really only yielding about $20,000 in revenue, from the average student. Since international students don't qualify for federal and state aid programs and typically don't qualify for need-based programs that's institutional funding, the discount rate is much lower for the traditional international student. So what this means is the more international students that are enrolling at universities, the higher percentage of net revenue the university sees from them. So I think this alone can show very much why the motivation is there for universities to go after and pursue international students much more. So if we can help them complete applications, the implications for this is far-reaching in terms of the potential revenue for our university partners. Mentioned earlier very quickly, so our initial revenue model is going to be a $50 registration fee. It is a 2-year period for our student user. It includes obviously access to their portal, cloud storage. We think that a 1 gigabyte maximum should be sufficient for the type of documents that they would be uploading here. They have unlimited submissions to universities and obviously will get assistance with the verification needed for their documentations. In the initial phase, the university participation will be free. We want to sign on and onboard as many of our university partners as possible. This will make it so much more of an attractive option for our student users. In the phase 2 rollout, we're going to have some opportunities for universities to have optional services, which they will be paying for, an enhanced profile to get their name out there in front of students more, and the opportunity to purchase leads and names from our service and our database of student users. Going into the financial model very quickly, and again, keeping in mind that this is at a very, very conservative estimate. Our model does show us breaking even heading into the 24th month within that first 2-year period, and that's at a very meager 3,900 customers. Again, I want to stress that I do think this is a very conservative model, so obviously this could be accelerated should we see a much more positive traction and acquisition as we roll out. Customer validation. So I mentioned earlier that I've, my time in the field, I've heard a lot of gripes about this and rumblings. I've reached out to colleagues in the field that are in those decision-making positions. And a solution like this has been welcomed with very positive feedback. A lot of the feedback is spending lots of time on following up with students. The time commitment that's there, colleagues feeling that they don't have enough time in the day to really address a lot of what needs to be done. They do feel that they're under pressure from their leadership to produce more and more international students. So I think, especially in the initial phase where it's free access for universities, there's going to be a very high participation rate, and this is going to be received very positively from our colleagues that work on the university side. Some of our competitors, there are a few organizations that have a few functions that would compete directly with us. I do think in terms of the overall package we're offering at this time, with being a solution that allows students to upload their documents themselves and work directly with the university. There's not really quite a comprehensive program like that. There's a unique opportunity. Naviance, one of the organizations in the field, has just pulled out their international services. They did provide a portal by which universities and high schools could upload documents for receiving institutions. So there's actually a hole in the market now since that organization is pulling out. They didn't allow for student uploads of documents, so that's one of the benefits that E.D.U is providing over their model. The backpack tool through WES is fairly new. The WES Article 26 backpack is in its pilot phase. It is targeting that refugee and that displaced student, so they're piloting this with Syrian refugees and a handful of universities, but isn't quite widely accepted and is not available to all regions. Common application, which I mentioned earlier, does serve as an application platform. It has great recognition in the field already. It does not allow for students to upload certain documents. It does rely on the high schools to do so. And this does come as a fee for higher ed institutions and universities to participate. So we do have to currently pay for the, participation with their program. E.D.U is looking to provide access to all world regions, allowing the student to be the uploader of the document, providing free access for the universities and higher ed institutions, integration with the CRMs where needed, as well as allowing a place for all of the students' documents to be stored and not just a portion, which they only currently have access to do, with the competitors in the market. In terms of our acquisition model, the target students we mentioned is the non-traditional applicant, not currently in high school, that student that's probably displaced, and some of our graduate applicants, since they do, apply a little bit more independently. Social media and online marketing is going to really be the big push for these students. College fairs and similar events where students are going and browsing college options. There are a number of other third-party vendors that have a presence there, so this is a great way to get in front of students in person. We're hoping that partner referrals and then word of mouth with the international student recruitment world is really big, and that's something that we're going to hopefully be able to rely on as well as we roll out our product. For universities, we do want to initially target some of the U.S. News and World Report top 100 institutions. We really have to have some of those big name brand, so to say, schools there to have some punching power, so to say. I think those that will be buying on much earlier will be small private institutions, public institutions, so schools that are probably struggling a little bit more than others that don't quite have funding and resources to do adequate international recruitment. I think this will be a very attractive option for those institutions. This will involve a lot of direct sales, site visits, campus visits. We will have advertising and online and print outlets, within industry publications, and then attendance at professional organizations, conferences, and similar events. The initial timeline that we're looking for, the pre-launch, is going to consist of about a 6-month period where we're going to secure the initial team, 1 IT professional, 2 sales members, as well as myself, design and develop the website and the portal and have that ready to go for the launch at the beginning of next year, initiate our marketing campaign, and onboard, obviously, the institutions and the key partners that we need for a successful launch. During the first year is going to be a full marketing and media blitz, so we want the brand recognition to be out there as much as possible. Heavy attendance and activities at events in the field, conferences, college fairs, professional organizations. We want to generate as many leads as possible as we're trying to onboard users for our program. And then, of course, a lot of travel and entertainment activities, so developing those relationships with our universities and with our partners. I do think that relationship building and those partnerships will go a long way. As we move into the second year, we will expand our team as necessary, adjust the marketing plan, launch the expanded university services, so this will kick in the new revenue model, the revenue that would be coming in from the university side, penetrate outside of our beachhead market, and then get much more involved in our professional organizations in terms of sponsoring events, being involved with putting on workshops, really lending credibility to our investment in the field. So what E.D.U is seeking at this time is an initial startup funding of $500,000. This will cover our initial startup costs and the estimated first-year expenses that we will have. We do feel very comfortable financially moving into our launch with this initial funding. The startup, as we mentioned earlier, is going to take place the second half, this last 6 months of the 2018 year, with launching right at the beginning of 2019. This will be ideal as juniors in high school are starting to think about their application process for the following year, and gives us perfect time to start and to penetrate into the market. I do want to thank you once again for lending your time and hearing me out on our product. We think we have an excellent solution that's going to be beneficial to students, allowing them to pursue their dreams and fulfill their aspirations, and will be a beneficial tool for our university partners to meet their enrollment goals and service their students. I will be available for questions as necessary. Thank you again.